first edition of the Nahar Jeeto Bookathon, presented in association with the Raisoni Foundation. In this session, we shall trace a path back to the early origins and creation of India through the acclaimed book, The Birth of My Nation, Tracing India's Nationhood by Sutapa Basu. The Birth of My Nation is an enchanting non-fiction book that narrates the tale of India and her past, her grand civilizations, glorious empires, her dreadful times under a cruel power, her awakening to freedom, and her integration into a nation under one flag, one government, one constitution, and it ends with her becoming one of the greatest democracies that she is today. The book offers a fascinating story of the Union of India and the birth and history of each of her 28 states and 8 union territories. It shows us a glimpse of our India like never before. The author, Sutapa Basu, is a best-selling, award-winning author, educationist, poet, storyteller, and a translator. She has published more than 10 books in several genres such as historical novels, mysteries, non-fiction, and literature. Her historical novel, The Curse of Nader Shah, won the Best Fiction Award at the Author Awards 2019, and she is also known for her best-selling historical fiction, Padmavati, The Queen Tells Her Own Story. Sutapa has also won the Times of India's Write India campaign in 2016 and has received several accolades, including the Excellence in Publishing Award by the Public Diplomacy Forum in 2021. She also manages Sutapa's studio, runs the live chat show Bistro Bus Conversations, and hosts her own podcast show, The Sutapa Basu Show. This session will be moderated by Mr. Dipankar Mukherjee, who is the publisher and director of the Readomania Publishing House, an independent publishing house in New Delhi. Under his leadership, the house has produced over 200 books in 10 years with some critically acclaimed and award-winning titles as well. He teaches creative writing at many institutes and runs the popular Young Author Program. He is an engineer from Nagpur University and holds an MBA from IIT Madras and has been in the corporate world for over 9 years. He is now an entrepreneur and also holds business interests in hospitality and manufacturing. So that is all from me, and now over to our moderator to continue the session.
I'm Dipankar Mukherjee, director and founder at Readomania Publishing. We are a 10-year-old publishing house based in Delhi, and we do an eclectic mix of books across various genres. Today we have with us Sutapa Basu. She's a best-selling and an award-winning author of multiple books, and she's been publishing more than 400 educational books so far, and more than 10-12 books in the trade genre. And today's session is based on her book, her best-selling book, The Birth of My Nation. Before we move on to the book, I'd request Sutapa ma'am to give us a brief introduction about the entire body of work that she has built over the last 20-odd years.
Thank you, Dipankar. You have said it all. So I'll just start off by saying that my debut book it was Dangle, which was a psychological thriller. And it was nominated for the Best Debut Book by the Anupam Kher Book Awards. And then the next book was a historical narrative, which is called Padmavati, which I think is still selling pretty well even now, though it came out somewhere in 2016 or 17. I think Dipankar will vouch for that. And after that, I did write another historical narrative, which was Genghis Khan. Now, Padmavati was actually the beginning of a kind of trilogy, where I was writing about the heroic women of India. And again, the Legend of Genghis Khan was again a trilogy that I started, where I was talking about the invaders who have come to India from outside India. So the first book in the trilogy was The Legend of Genghis Khan. The second one was The Curse of Nader Shah. And The Curse of Nader Shah is special to me because it won the Best Fiction Award at Author Awards by the Times of India and JK Papers. And after Padmavati, the next book that I wrote in that trilogy is Parvati Bai, which came out last year. And I think, again, I will, I think Dipankar will vouch for it, that it's doing pretty well, because I think some schools have accepted it as a prescribed supplementary reader. And the other thrillers that I've written is Cursed Inheritance, which is also a thriller for young adults. I have also, translated a Bengali heritage children's literature, and its name is Princesses, Monsters, and Magical Creatures. Of course, one of my highlights is this book, which we are going to discuss today, The Birth of My Nation. This book again has been selected as a prescribed reader by nearly 5 to 6 schools, and they're still reading it there this year as well. So this really has been, a milestone in my journey, and I'm very happy with it. And this year, I've recently come out with a book which is very different because it's a detective book. It's a mystery, and that is that is about wildlife conservation and about artificial intelligence and about history buffs. So altogether, there is some crime happening, and there is a group of children called mystery hounders who are detecting, who are finding out who the criminal is. So, and of course, I have 2 anthologies, which are till now as ebooks, but I think they're soon going to be in print. So that, I think, is my journey.
Thank you, ma'am. That's really illustrious of you of writing so many books. Coming back to today's topic on the birth of my nation. In today's context, let's begin with understanding why should children read this book? What is the relevance of this particular book in today's environment?
Let me give you the relevance of why this book is relevant for me. Why did I write this book? What is the origin, or what is the genesis? So I was asked by somebody, just randomly, that what do you think was the country, India, that was given to us by the British in 1947? So I said, the country we know today, which starts from Ladakh and goes to Kanyakumari, and then from Kutch to Arunachal Pradesh. So that is the country that was given to us. And that person told me, you are so wrong. That was not the country that the British gave us. So the British only gave us what was British India, which was actually 60% of the country that we know today. So that really intrigued me. And I immediately felt that, all of us who have been born after independence, we ourselves are so vague about how was this country born? How was this nation built? And I felt that the people we should start with are the children in the school. And again, there's a reason for it. Because why was it that I was ignorant about this fact? Because we never studied about it in the school. There is hardly anything about it in the history textbooks in the school. And so I felt that I have to fill that gap. And that basically is the reason why I wrote this book. So I want that children should know about our country. Children should not only know how this nation was built, children should also know, be able to answer a lot of questions that are being, coming up, that are being raised about our nation, about different parts of a nation, maybe about Kashmir, maybe about, why are 2 southern states fighting over the Kaveri waters. They need to know all this. And these questions are there in their minds because they're listening to it. They're, a lot of people are talking about it, whether it's on the media or whether it's, among their own grown-ups around them. So why should the children not know about it? And that is what this book is all about. It tells you about how, not just how India was born, but how every one of its 36 states and union territories were born. And yet
Wonderful.
It's not a history book.
So, absolutely. And this is something I wanted to bring out. So, you've been writing history, unlike history, in a very story form.
Right.
What do you think is the relevance of it, and how does that bring in children closer to history?
So what I want to tell children is history is actually an adventure. And everything that we do today relates to history. So if people think that it's history, let's forget it. No, that's absolutely wrong. Let's embrace history because history teaches us many things and it is very, very relevant today. Anything that we want to know, let's look at our own selves. Let's start with our own selves, our own identity. If we want to know where we came from, we need to go back to our family history. We need to know how our families were decades in the past. And that will give us our identity. Not just identity, it will make us proud it will make us proud of what our family have done. So in the same way, history is something that is not just about kings and queens and battles that happened long ago. It is about how people, normal people, common people like me and you lived. So when I write, whether it's Padmavati or whether it's Parvati Bai or it's Genghis Khan, what I want to do is make these figures come alive for my readers. They are not just names in a history book with some birth and death days. No, they were normal human beings, just like all of us. So what they achieved, how did they achieve it? How is it that Genghis Khan became an emperor of such a huge kingdom, Mongolia, which was nearly 1/5 of the world's land during that time? How did it happen? Was he just born into it? No, he wasn't. He had to really struggle. So when we learn about the struggles of how people overcame a lot of obstacles in their lives and became relevant to history, earned their place in history, we realize that what we are going through, our own everyday struggles, are something that we can overcome, and they inspire us. And these are the reasons why I want to bring history very close to young readers and readers in general.
Wonderful. Ma'am, coming back to the book again, The Birth of My Nation, you've made it very, very clear that independence and integration did not come easy. And today we take it for granted that India is a combination, and the way it is, we take it for granted. What do you think is the best way to sensitize people about the fact that we are one of the most unique countries in the world, where it's an agglomeration of 28 different cultures coming together and staying as a whole, as one nation?
So this,
how do kids what is the best way for kids to know and understand and sensitize?
Absolutely. As I always tell children when I'm talking about the birth of my nation to them in the schools and elsewhere, that India is one country which has shown that unity in diversity works. It is successful. And in fact, if you read this book, the whole vision of India as we know it today, you can see the map right there, was visualized by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. And one of the underlying principles was, we will let the diversity of our various regions remain. Uniting them together into this one country doesn't mean that they're going to all become same. No, we want the differences to stay. And that was one of the underlying principles, in fact, of integrating India. So every region, every kingdom they went to, they said that don't worry, your cuisine, your culture, your language, your people will always be, they will be as they are, and you will be allowed to grow. So these are one of the most important principles underlying the integration and underlying our constitution. Very importantly, one of the principles of our constitution is that all diversities have to grow, whether they are from the tribal regions, whether they're from the northeast, whether they're from the south, wherever they're from. They will grow, they will have even institutions where they will be allowed to explore and exploit their own cultures.
Wonderful. Let's, ma'am, start going into the book. Why don't you read us the first chapter from the book for our audiences to know the kind of writing that you've given to us as a gift?
So what I'm going to read is an extract from the first chapter. Now you can see this picture. So there is this woman, this lady who's sitting here under the tree, and there is this group of children. So she is actually the storyteller, and she is going to tell the story to these children about how India was born. So she starts off first by asking them who they are. So I'm going to read from there. No, who are you really? The lady asked again. The children stared at her, then looked at each other with puzzled faces. Well, began Yusuf slowly, my name is Yusuf and I'm a Kashmiri. Taking his lead, Rajni declared, "My name is Rajni and I am a Gujarati. And I'm Trisha. I'm from Telangana," piped up Trisha. "I'm a Manipuri and my name is Joy," said Joy. "I'm Ahana and a Bengali," said the eldest girl. "And you?" The lady smiled down at Veer. "I'm Veer. I'm a Punjabi," said Veer, placing a dimpled hand on his chest. Sadness once again darkened the lady's eyes. She scanned each face. Then she softly asked, "But who is an Indian?" Now the children looked truly trumped. Yusuf declared, "All of us are Indians, ma'am." "You did not say so when I asked you who you are," retorted the lady. "But," began Ahana with a confused shake of her head, "why should we say we are Indians? Everyone knows we are Indians. Don't we live in India?" "Well," the lady explained, "you told me you are Kashmiri, Bengali, Punjabi, Gujarati, or from Telangana." "Yes," agreed Yusuf. "When we say which states we come from, it makes each of us unique. It gives each of us an identity," Ahana added. "It makes each of us different," said Joy. The rest of them nodded. "My dear children, let us find out what makes us similar before we look for differences among us." As the children frowned, she said, "Whichever state we come from, all of them exist in India. Therefore, what is our first identity? That we are Indians. That is what makes us similar, makes us one." Her eyes went from face to face, observing their thoughtful expressions. "I feel sad when I hear our people call themselves Kashmiri, Bengali, Punjabi, Gujarati, Manipuri, or any other. They forget that all these states are parts of one nation, our India. Each state breathes because India lives."
Wonderful, wonderful, ma'am. This is really, really inspiring. Let's now move further into the book. And now you've taken each of the states and their integration one by one, explained in a very, very simple language how they've come together. Let us take a few snippets and talk about the stories around them. I know you mentioned in your book about a small landlocked part of Western India which was moving to Pakistan, but due to the alertness of the Indian authorities was finally neared as part of India. What is the story about that, and what place is this?
This is Junagadh. So the moment
Okay.
India became independent, and moment people started, the news went out that India now the princely states which are there, which were more than 500 states, are going to be integrated. Immediately, the Nawab of Junagadh said, "You see what? Let me just go back a little. The history is this, that all these princely states had alliances with the British. So when the British left, those alliances became null and void. And these princely states had three choices. They could be independent, they could join Pakistan, or they can join India." So this is what Junagadh did. They said immediately that we are going to join Pakistan. Now, Junagadh is a landlocked state very far from Pakistan's borders. Now, how it was going to become a part of Pakistan, that the Nawab never thought. The reason is the Nawab was too focused on other things. And by other things, I mean his 100+ dogs. He only loved dogs. So he was not really bothered about how this was going to happen. Not only that, his people had already sent him a petition that we want to join India. But he was not bothered about what his people wanted. So he decided that he is going to join Pakistan. So immediately there was a lot of correspondence happening, between Pakistan, India, the Indian government, and Junagadh. But nothing really came out of it. And to push the Indian government, what Junagadh did, the Nawab Junagadh did, was he started, making a lot of law and order problem in all the small villages and the towns around Junagadh. Now, Junagadh was nearly in a kind of siege because no merchants, no business people wanted to do business in Junagadh. As a result, the people of Junagadh started suffering. normal supplies of food or any other important material was not reaching them. The Indian government, the Union of Indian Government had to react. So they sent the Indian army. And slowly, as the Indian army came and surrounded Junagadh, the Nawab realized that his army was no match for it. So what did he do? He quickly got a chartered plane. He took his dogs with him and he took a lot of treasures from his treasury and he got onto this plane and he went off to Karachi. And you won't believe it. He left one of his wives and a child back in Junagadh, but he took his dogs on the plane. The poor lady had to travel by a boat later on to Karachi. So this is what happened, and then the Indian army came into Junagadh. By then, it was, and there was peace in Junagadh. The local government took over Junagadh, and it became a part of India because the his minister who was there handed over Junagadh to the commander of the Indian army. So that is one.
Wonderful. But there are 500 states that became a part of India. So, like Junagadh, was there any other state that declared independence?
Yes, one of the most important states, which is Hyderabad. The Nizam of Hyderabad decided that it's going to be an independent state, and he constantly referred to the kind of agreement he had with the Queen. So he says the Queen and I are, at the same position, and I'm definitely not going to become a part of the democracy, which is the Indian Union. There were a lot of messages which went from Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel to him that let us have a meeting. Let me explain to you how we are going to have, how Hyderabad will be integrated. But he just refused to meet anybody. Later on, one got to know that there was a kind of Muslim community, a Muslim group basically called the Razakars, who were actually putting pressure on him to not give in to the Indian government. And when the Indian government started sending these messages to the Nizam to put more pressure on him, what the Razakars started doing is they created a law and order problem, a law and order kind of problem in Hyderabad. They started, beating up the Hindu community, which was there, started doing a lot of injustices. They started holding rallies and trying to tell the Muslim community of Hyderabad that the Indian government is giving weapons to the Hindus here and they're going to start fighting with you. And so they were trying to create a kind of communal, not try, but they really created a communal violence. And the Prime Minister at that time, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, did not want to intervene, by any kind of force. So he kept on sending messages to the Nizam that please meet and please see that this sort of a situation doesn't happen. But when the Razakars started going to the border villages and started attacking them, these villages were a part of the provinces of the Union of India. Not only that, they started, trains which came from those states to Hyderabad and were going, they started setting them on fire and killing the people on it. It was then that the media and the people of the Union of India, they started raising their voices and saying, what is happening? Why is the government not doing anything? There are people getting killed over there every day. And then the Prime Minister, he approved the order and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel sent in the Indian Army. And the Indian Army, I think they fought for about 3 days on the streets of Hyderabad. A lot of the Nizam's soldiers were killed, the Razakars were arrested, and eventually the Nizam, after 3 days, handed over the state of Hyderabad to the commander, General Chaudhary of the Indian Army. So that is another story.
This is a very interesting story, and this helps us believe that we've got this brilliant gift as an India-led country, and we should maintain the integration and the unity of the country. Coming to the northern side of it, the current Punjab as we know it, and the current Haryana as we know it, was not the way it was given to us. So what was the erstwhile name of this particular part of the country, and how did that become what we see it as today?
So it was the northwestern provinces, and it was some of it was the kingdom, of Punjab, and some of it was again other small states which were there, and very rich states actually. But the Prince of Punjab, he was one of the first people to actually sign the the agreement with the Indian government and accede his state. But the rest of the states were still thinking about it. Now, one way that that Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel tried to integrate India was there were small kingdoms which really did not have very much wealth to look after their people. So what he did was he tried to make one province by merging these small kingdoms with a larger kingdom, and that is what he did in Punjab. So he did that, and Punjab became one province first as the Union of India. But there was already a lot of talk of the fact that there are these Hindi-speaking people in Punjab and the Punjabi-speaking people, and so they wanted separate states. And so eventually, giving into this whole fact that the culture and the language is important. So according to the language of the people, the state was once again divided and it became Haryana and Punjab. And for a very long time, the capital remained the same for both the states, which is Chandigarh. So this was absolutely divided on the basis of the people speaking a particular language, because again, that was one of the principles of the integration.
Great. Ma'am, there are two states in India which joined in very late, as late as 1970s. So can you throw some light on the states that joined us much later in the day?
Yeah, so there were two states. One, of course, is Goa, which is such a holiday destination for all of us today. So Goa was not colonized by the British. It was colonized by the Portuguese. And the Portuguese refused, even though once India became independent, the Prime Minister constantly sent out messages saying that this is a part of India and it's time that you acceded to India. The Portugal did not want to do it. And eventually, again, in a similar manner, when they started seeing that the Portuguese were sending their warships to Goa, the Indian Army had to take action, and that happened somewhere in 1970. And not just Goa, there were other small islands which were also on the western coast, which were also a part of the Portuguese colony. But those islands were taken very easily. I mean, there were some really bold activists. There was only a kind of a channel which separated the mainland of India from these islands, and these activists one night simply swam across that channel. They went to the small island which had just one police station. They just, tied up the police. They unfurled the Indian flag and they declared it independent. So that is also what gave a lot of courage to a lot of people in Goa. So they were marches which happened by the activists towards Goa, but they were stopped by the Portuguese. In fact, some of them were fired upon, and the Prime Minister at that time, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, sent out, he sent out these messages to Portugal that this is not what is expected from you. But eventually, when they started sending their warships to Goa, the Portuguese, and there was a Portuguese army there, the Indian Army had to react. And all the three forces, the Air Force first went and bombed these ships while they were in the harbor in the port. So the ships were destroyed. The Indian Navy, they created a kind of, they surrounded Goa on the seaside, and the Indian Army started marching to Goa. But it did not, hardly a day, and the Portuguese army surrendered, and Goa became a part of India. The second place, second place was Puducherry, which was at that time called Pondicherry. This was a French colony, and like in a lot of these princely states, the Indian government decided to have a plebiscite, which means a voting by the people. So French had about 4 colonies. One of them was Chandanagar in West Bengal. And when the plebiscite was conducted, Chandanagar very clearly voted to join India. So Chandanagar became a part of India without any problem. But the other states, one of them being Pondicherry, decided that no, they wanted to be a part of France. But after a while, France was very interested in keeping that colony when they were a part of war in Cambodia and Vietnam and all. But because that was some kind of a base they had, a military base. But once that war was over, they were really not interested in keeping that colony. So after a while, through talks and some disagreements also, the Pondicherry also became a part of India. But a very unusual thing, just before that happened, just before the merger happened between Pondicherry and the Union of India, the French government offered the people of Pondicherry a French passport, French citizenship. They said, all who want to become French citizens, you are welcome. And if you go today to Pondicherry or Puducherry, there are lots of people there who have dual citizenship, French and Indian, or only French. And you'll find a lot of French culture in Puducherry. You will find names of streets in French, and even the police, they wear the typical French police kind of uniform. So the French culture is preserved a lot in Puducherry.
Wonderful, wonderful. Ma'am, coming back to the book once again, you did a lot of research to put all of this together. So tell us something about how did you go about doing the research?
Humongous research, actually. Of course, my basic thing about the integration, how the integration happened, and how every kingdom or every princely state became a part of the Union of India. That is based completely on the Home Secretary that time, VP Menon's book, The Integration of India. So a lot of it is based, all of it is based on that, because he was instrumental. He actually went out and spoke to these princes, the kings, the nawabs. He actually created those agreements and got them signed. So when he wrote about the integration of India, that was actually a day-to-day, description of what happened during that time. So that is, of course, my base. But when I'm writing about the history of every state, and all of us know that many of the states were born after independence, and then they got divided. Like I just spoke about Punjab. Another state is Maharashtra. Maharashtra was actually just Maharashtra, a huge state when it was born. And then it was divided into Gujarat and Maharashtra. And of course, recently we know about, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. So I really had to research the history of every state till today, till the modern age, and read a lot of books from the library, from the archives, especially about the northeastern states. Every one of those northeastern states has their own history. And I had to read up all that to find out how things actually happened. And that is how I've written it. But one thing I want to make it very clear, this book is a non-fiction book. Only facts are given here. Those facts are very, very well researched. And if you look at the end of the book, you have a huge list, pages and pages of bibliography, the references to which I consulted. And everything in it are just facts which I have researched, and not just read one person, but read more than one person, so that I could get the actual fact, what actually happened. And the book does not have any of my opinions. As an author, I've been very careful to absolutely be factual, and nothing that is opinion has gone into it. Because I believe the readers are old enough and mature enough to make their own conclusions and have their own opinions. I would like them to build their own opinions.
Wonderful, ma'am. I think that was a great conversation, and it was wonderful talking to you. All the readers and all the children must read this book. They would love this, because this gives them the background of what India is today and why we love the way the country is like this. So thank you for writing this book. Thank you for taking time out to do so much research and putting in one perspective. Before we close the session, ma'am, tell us something about why should children be reading books these days? What is the relevance, given that there is so much content around? What is the importance of books?
Books, I know that there is a lot of content around, and a lot of that content is also on screen. So there's a lot of visual content as well. What I believe is, when you read a book, Number one, you can stop wherever you're reading and think about it. You can analyze it. That is something that sometimes when we are watching something, which is a visual media, it moves so fast that you really don't have time to think. Books help you to think. The other thing is when you read books, you can often compare what is happening in the book with something that is happening in your own life. So you identify with the protagonist, with the plot, with whatever is happening in the. So that is another reason why I think young children should read books. The other thing is, as I always tell children, books are your best friends because they're always there. They never ghost you. They never judge you. They are always there as your companions. They take you on journeys which you may have not even imagined. And that is the reason why it opens your imagination. It opens your way of thinking. It gives, it sort of exposes you to things which are different, which you have not thought of, or you have never seen, or you're not familiar with. So that exposes you to those things as well. So you get to know so much. Your knowledge bar, really becomes high. And I think those are the reasons why children should read.
Thank you, ma'am. On that note, on wonderful note, we'll close the session today. Thank you for taking time for doing this session.
Thank you so much, Raisoni Group. Thank you, Dipankar, for being here with us, and what a wonderful moderation you've done. Thank you so much. And of course, thank you, the Jito platform. Thank you very much.